Welcome to Bon Vivant Chic, Life Well Lived, the podcast for anyone who wants to cut through today's noise and just listen to meaningful conversations on the human experience and the power of connectedness. I'm your host, Ernestine Morgan, an advocate for kindness with a passion for showcasing human interest stories that matter. Today, I'm happy to be sitting with Dr. Eric and Christine Weiss, who just happen to be family. My cousin Eric is a plastic surgeon in Jacksonville, Florida, and Christine wrote a powerful book titled Educating Marston, Their Journey Navigating the Complexity of Autism with their son Marston. Eric and Chris have agreed to sit down with me to discuss their journey and the extraordinary place they find themselves in today as advocates for umbilical cord stem cell therapy. Please welcome Chris and Eric Weiss.
Thank you so much.
Nice to be here.
Can you share where you grew up and what life was like?
I grew up in New England. I come from a very large family, number 5 of 6 children, an Irish Catholic family. We were the typical New England family, very close-knit group. There were 5 girls and 1 boy. They say that you pick the golden ticket when you have a mom and dad that love you, and we had a really good relationship with our mom and dad. When my younger sister was almost 2, she had a very high fever, and back then they didn't even have 911. And so my parents put her in the car and drove her through a snowstorm to the emergency room. By the time they stopped the fever, the damage had already happened. I grew up with a sister who was special needs. My brother passed away at 19. He was in the military during the Vietnam War. He had been stationed in Texas, and a truck ran a red light, and he was on a motorcycle and was hit and killed at 19. And obviously, my brother was the only boy in the family. That was a very devastating thing in my family, too. But my mom was a very strong woman. She was not ever going to give up. She kept our family close together. She was very strong Catholic. She went to church every day. For me, I watched her keep our family together. It wasn't what she said necessarily. It was her actions that I absorbed as a child. My mom and dad moved to Florida in 1974. I went to my freshman year in Clearwater, and my sister went to her senior year in Clearwater.
I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida. A short time in Miami, but moved to St. Petersburg when I was in first grade. I had a younger brother and an older brother. A younger sister came along later. It was a typical Florida kid lifestyle. I could walk or ride a bike to an old pier I could fish on. I got into fishing, baseball. Life revolved around Florida outside. It was great. I went through high school in St. Petersburg and really enjoyed myself. Still close to my brothers and my sister. I was born in Maine. My dad was just getting out of the Navy, so I moved to Miami when I was 6 months. My parents were Florida. Their goal was to get back down here.
What are some of the fondest memories that you have from growing up in Florida?
I spent a lot of time with my father because fishing was his passion. All the boys, and even my sister. And my mom would give me $5 if I could catch dinner. I could ride my bike to Boca Chica Bay and catch some redfish and some trout. That was heaven. Just in my neighborhood, there's probably 30 or 40 kids. We all went to the same elementary school, middle school, and high school. We were very close, and even when we have our high school reunions, our little group gets together, just hanging out with those guys and girls and having a lot of fun.
My fondest memories are of our Sunday dinners. My family was large, and so were all the other families. My mom came from 6, so she had many brothers and sisters. We'd have Sunday dinners at different relatives' houses. It was just great. It really kept us close as a family. Even today, we're very, very close to our cousins. And I think I look back on that, that was something that they had to do. They could have not got together, and they really kept us together. We're trying to do the same thing in our generation and the next generation too.
Which is amazing. How did you two meet?
We met at a summer job. He's at Bayfront Medical Center. We applied for a summer job in between summers in college, and he sat next to me and he borrowed a pencil, and we started talking, and then we both ended up at the same department. That summer we became very close. We were friends, really close friends, because we both had significant others. We worked in the dietary department.
She was on her way to becoming a dietitian. I just needed money. Over the years, as things dropped away, we started dating and ended up getting married.
He pursued me.
Yeah.
Good job. So tell me, who had the biggest influence on you when you were young?
It had to be my father. He was a kid of the Depression, kid of World War, just hard work. and no excuses. This is what he said to us. You work till the work is done, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. When your work is done, look around and see if anybody else needs help. After you've helped anybody else that needs work, ask yourself, are you proud of your work? And the last question you should ask yourself is, would I be proud of your work? And that's the only way you get to rest. And so it didn't matter if it was mowing the lawn or picking weeds or washing his car or whatever I was doing. That's what he taught us.
I think what was cool about Eric's family too is when I would go over to their house for dinner, he would tell me before dinner, you got to bring something to the table. Look at the paper, get an article, brush up on current events because you got to present something at the dinner table. And I was like, what? And he goes, then you're going to have to debate it because there's going to be a pro and a con at the table. And so I was a wreck the first time. I'm like, what should I do? I actually had to write a paper. And I remember some were on my side and some were against me. And they were debating this loud, right? I mean, your family, they were hyper. And it was every time we went to his house. And I learned so much. At my house, we were talking about relatives and journeys and whatnot. And they were like this educational impact.
We were responsible, even as long as I can remember, even in sixth grade, you better read the front page of the paper because you need to know. I think it was my father's father, my grandfather, who died before I was born. He was an opinionated man, a learned guy. To have a letter published by the New York Times on their editorial page, just think of what a big deal that was. And some of his writing started in Rise of Hitler. He was writing in the New York Times that Hitler had to be controlled, people weren't paying attention. And so I think my dad learned that world events matter. I believe that was discussed around his dinner table too.
Loved it. My biggest influence would be my mom. She was the youngest in her family of 6 children. I saw the devastation of her only son. And then I saw my sister because I was closest in age to her. So I really was home and my other sisters had left the house. And I saw how hard she worked. And my mom never complained. I never saw her ever complain about her life or what was presented to her. She just picked up her boots and put them on the same way, and she kept our family together. I think that influenced me. Then I used it in my journey. I actually was angry at my mom because my sister took so much time that she wasn't able to spend time with me. My oldest sister, Margaret, always says, you had a different mother. And I said, yeah, because it was just you. Mom had time to do things with you. And when it got to me, she didn't have that time. I was angry internally, like why? Because I didn't understand it. But as my journey progressed, I understood it and I respected what I had learned. It didn't come till later that I learned, wow, thank you for what you've given me. You know?
There have been certainly pivotal moments and decisions that you've had to make during the course of your life. Can you walk us through some of these moments?
We had the typical close-knit family. Everything was good. I went to medical school through a Navy scholarship, entered the Navy, was assigned in Jacksonville, and I was a surgeon in the Navy. Austin was born first. We had Austin when we were still living in San Francisco and came up through Miami for my plastic surgery residency, and then to Jacksonville and in the Navy, everything was good. Then Marston was born, and we knew Austin was our role model, and we saw signs of issues with Marston. To be honest, we didn't know what was going on. This was 28 years ago, before autism was so prevalent. I went through medical school, never saw a case, and pediatricians didn't have much to say. We ended up taking him from Philadelphia to Boston Children's to Miami Children's, and eventually Miami Children's made a diagnosis. He has autism. Back then, there was no real internet, Google or Facebook, and it was difficult to know what to do because the pediatricians didn't offer anything. So try there. And we embarked on a lifelong journey, making him the best person he could be. And that's really what changed our lives. Chris was an unbelievable mom. No stone was unturned. Anything and everything that she could find to help, we tried. I think I was the one that vetted it. Does this make sense? Not make sense? Then we would sit down and say, after 3 months, did it help? Did it not help? And then we would move on to the next.
This book you wrote, Chris, powerful.
Thank you.
I remember visiting you and you were doing this thing with Marston on a massage table and he was
patterning.
You said he had to learn how to crawl because he never crawled because he scooted and that might be part of the therapy.
Right.
I was just mesmerized. And this book is truly a handbook for anyone going through this journey of trying to navigate getting help for their children.
They took you to the hospital, you talked to the pediatric oncologist. There was a treadmill, there was a game plan. But when you got diagnosed with autism, there's no game plan.
I remember when we got diagnosed in Miami, sitting in the parking lot, you and I just crying because I looked at him. He's a physician. He's very bright. He went to Duke and he didn't know what to do. We were a team and I was like, oh, he doesn't know what to do. How are we going to figure this out? It was just a diagnosis and bye, see ya. And I was like, oh my God, it was such an empty feeling. And as we went on our journey, I remember saying, I will do everything possible to have others who are behind me not have that feeling because it was such a desperate, empty feeling that no one was there to catch you. I think now we do have the internet. We have voices of other people in power telling us about autism and making it part of what we do. People are out there helping. I have the web page, who I use, what things were good. When you have a child with autism, you don't have a lot of time. So you could just go to the back of the book and look, he has sensory issues. He has speech issues. You could look, where is it? Oh, she did this. Let's look this up. So I think those were things I didn't have. Just little tools.
Every effort that you made throughout the course of so many years and to have a roadmap for others. You mentioned faith throughout the book.
For me, my faith was not strong. It was there. I had a mother who had a strong faith and instilled that in us, but I wouldn't say that I relied on my faith, especially when I was ready to give up. I knew what it took because I saw my mom. And so I said, I am not that person. I can't do what she did. I didn't have faith in myself. And then one night I was like, okay, God, I'm done. I'm not ready to do this. Just take me. I can't do this. My dad had passed away and my dad was such a gentle, kind soul. That night, it was a vision. He came to me. He sat on my bed and it was like he was right there. And he said, it's going to be okay. You're going to be able to do this. I remember Eric gets up at 4 a.m. and he was in the closet and the closet door opened and light came into the room. I looked away for 1 second to see him. I was sitting up in bed and Eric was like, what are you doing? And I was like, my Eric, Dad. He's like, what? I said, come. I made him put his hand on my chest and my heart was pounding. When I told him that, he just cried and he said, it's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. It was like a endorsement of who we were. You're going to be able to figure this out. It strengthened our marriage because we decided that we were a team and we were on the same side. And I think it strengthened our faith also.
Oh, without a doubt. One of my favorite stories about the faith is his confirmation. He went to Catholic CCD, he got baptized, but as he got old enough to get confirmed, he obviously didn't speak. He had a few words, but he couldn't say the Lord's Prayer, he couldn't say the Apostles' Creed, he couldn't say the Hail Mary. And so the church said he couldn't be confirmed. That really bent me out of shape because from everything I know, Jesus liked the children.
Eric doesn't get angry. He's a very calm guy. I never saw him before losing his mind. I was like, hey, we're going to figure this out. It'll be okay.
That night, I was at home and I was just doing some paperwork. We said a prayer. And then within 2 minutes of saying that prayer, the phone rang. I picked up the phone and said, hello. He said, is this Eric Weiss? I don't know if you remember me. I'm Father Conrad Cow. And I go, you're right. I don't remember. He goes, I baptized Marston 16 years ago. The Catholic Church sent me away. I've been all over the world being a priest. They boxed up all my stuff. I'm now in Stark, Florida with prison ministry. I'm looking through my effects. And Chris had sent him a picture. Marston was his first sacrament. He just had something spoke to him. He goes, is everything okay? I went, it's far from okay. I explained about Marston not being baptized. He said, that's easy. He goes, I'll confirm. And so he did it. We had to jump through a few hoops. but it got done and it turned out to be a magical experience.
It was a prison ministry, Stark, Florida, and they were praying for him for 8 weeks before we got there. And these former prisoners were amazing. I couldn't breathe. I was crying so much. They brought food in their little trailer. They had made all this stuff for me. I literally went into the bathroom and was crying because I thought, these people love my son, no matter who he is. This is an open kindness that they are giving my son that they have no idea who he is. And it was just better than we ever thought it could be.
Without a doubt, it was moving.
You mentioned you work as a team. What lessons about family and relationships would you pass along to anyone with a child with special needs?
It's a very difficult journey. You see a flash of who you thought your child was going to be, and you have to rely on that person in your family who knows you and knows your son. And that's your husband. That bond is how we got through it. If I didn't have Eric and you didn't have me, that we couldn't have walked this journey together.
Chris was incredibly strong, so I knew that I could go to work every day, but I knew she needed help on the weekends. Our child wasn't the worst of the worst. There are some children that are extremely difficult. The forgotten children are the other kids, because 90% of your parenting has to go to the child. There's going to be good moments, bad moments. In the end, you're still a team.
That was my light bulb moment for my growing up with my sister. My mom didn't ignore me. And I realized then I felt guilty that I had put so much pressure on her that she wasn't around. So I think with Austin, I had to do the same thing. And I know what Austin went through because I'm a sister and a mother. And so I have told Austin I wasn't there for a lot of things, but I would never change what I did, because in the long run, Marston needs less services and he's better off, and I'm not going to be here forever. And he's still going to be here, your brother. And so I think you appreciate that as the mother.
What are some life lessons you've learned that you wish you had known earlier?
For me personally, that you don't know it all. I think academically I could study, I could read, I could pick up knowledge, but my strengths aren't Chris's strengths and her strengths aren't my strengths. Probably some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life because I didn't pay attention to her. She knows people better. She reads people. I tend to think that I understand the situation from what an ethical person would do, or everybody's seen them do it. And she would say, that's not going to happen. I would say that you chose your partner for a reason. Listen to them, even when you think that you know more, because you probably don't.
Pain is not prejudice. It comes to everyone in their life. Whether you're an adult or a child, we should treat people with kindness. We don't know what they're going through. Your pain eventually becomes your purpose. You use it for good. You, as an adult, see that in people. It's not about where they live, what they have, who they are. It's really their journey. If we all looked at people with kindness and love, we would imagine them differently. They've all gone through something devastating. And I think that with Austin, and he's going to go through something with your daughter, they're all going to go, and hopefully we equip them to walk that journey of kindness and being able to go through the fire and be a better person in the other side.
Marston's gone through all these different therapies, treatments over the years, and you have come upon a therapy that is really working. Can you give us the basics on what umbilical cord stem cell therapy is? I know there's different stem cells, so can you just walk us through the differences and what therapy has helped Marston and others?
I'll give the short version. There's essentially two different types of stem cells. There's embryonic or fetal stem cells and adult stem cells. Embryonic stem cells are designed to make a baby. Adult stem cells are designed to heal. We knew there was something in our bodies that healed us. We weren't quite sure what they were. Back in the late 50s, when everybody thought the Russians were going to drop a nuclear bomb on us, everybody was studying radiation injury. And so people decided to look at animals, and they found that young animals could tolerate radiation poisoning better than old rats. And so eventually, landmark study, he sewed a young rat to an old rat, made it a conjoined twin, and then he radiated the older rat and he healed like a younger rat. The study was the first to say what circulates in us that makes us young. And that kicked off this experimentation and research that took about 40 or 50 years to come to fruition. And they discovered these adult stem cells. Turns out that about midway through the second trimester, all the stem cells in umbilical cord blood become adult stem cells. And that's because it's not forming lungs and hearts, it's just growing. So we have adult stem cells throughout our bodies, and they're found in bone marrow, peripheral fat, dental pulp, all these different areas. And they're designed to migrate to inflammation, migrate to areas of injury and heal them. When we were young, autism was less than 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 25. And it's unclear why. The NIH did a study in 2005 published by Johns Hopkins, and they looked at cadaver brains, kids that had died who had autism, and all of them had brain inflammation in certain areas. It didn't matter if they never hit their milestones or they regressed, they all had this brain inflammation. They followed that step with a bunch of kids who were living and took their spinal fluid out and found the same inflammatory markers in their spinal fluid. The neurologist and the pathologist at Hopkins said, because it was one specific cell that was inflamed, he said, we could ever control the glial cell, it's a type of brain cell, will control autism. Fast forward 10 or 15 years, the football players are getting CTE. And the question was, how can you get a concussion and then 20 or 30 years later be paranoid, have a mental illness, be depressed, have dementia, etc. And it turns out people with CTE have glial cell inflammation. The traumatic brain injury people did 30 trials. The 30th thing they tried was umbilical cord blood, and it worked. That was truly a landmark study that happened in the United States. As soon as they published that, we tried it for autism, and they did remarkably well. 65 to 70% of kids saw much benefit with a single infusion showing connections and new growth. The brain, as soon as we saw that, made sense to us because brain inflammation is the root cause of Alzheimer's. It's the root cause of multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And so autism started to fit into this neurodegenerative disorder. Now it's well known that these cells, which come from live, healthy births of babies, can be infused with autism. And the vast majority gets significantly better. We ended up doing that for Marston, and it changed his life. Now, if you told me 5 years ago that he'd be completely conversant, live on his own, drive a car, and have a job, I would say from your lips to God's ears. But most people don't know about it. If you ask most pediatricians, what's the pathophysiologic problem with autism? They'll just tell you it's genetics, but it's not genetics. They've been looking for the autism gene for 25 years. They haven't found it. It's brain inflammation. And there's all sorts of ways you can get brain inflammation.
How old is Marston now?
30.
What's life like with Marston?
He's great. He's a wonderful child. He's a very loving, rule-oriented. That's how he lives his life. So, for instance, when he drives his car and it says 35, he goes 35. He doesn't go 36 because that's against the law. He loves having rules. He has to be at work at a certain time, and he's always there 10 minutes before. As an employee, they love that. They know he's very reliable. He shows up on time. You give him a list of what to do, he'll do it. I tell him on Saturday we're going to have family dinner. He will show up on time. He's just a good child. When he sees you, he hugs you. He tells me how much he loves me. He's just a really kind soul.
I don't think stem cells are a cure, but I think that it allows the body to start to heal itself. Marston still needs some help with his life, but much less. And we know he'll be able to make it on his own. He has a debit card that he can go to the store and get food. He can wash and dry his own clothes, put them on.
Yeah. And yesterday he called us and he said, I dropped my phone and I cracked the face of it. I'm going to go to the tech hospital and get it fixed. I would have never thought he would have the initiative to drive in his car. And I said, what tech hospital? And he said, the one by Aunt Patty's house. I was like, okay. That took initiative. Yeah. He knew he had to go to the tech hospital. And I thought, wow, he would have never done that.
You're both very strong advocates for stem cell therapy.
I've seen it do amazing things. I've given up my plastic surgery practice, and I'm now completely focusing on adult stem cells, which have no ethical concern because it's just afterbirth products, all healthy live births. It can grow new cartilage. It can maintain muscle mass. I put it in people's knees and they've avoided knee replacement. I've given it to hundreds, if not 500 or 600 children with autism. The question is, why don't they all get better? But the vast majority do. This is all new science. It's hard to answer all the questions. The average time in the United States from discovery to FDA approval is 17 years.
And this is FDA approved yet?
Approved for
other things.
But just not for autism. It's like an off label, like ivermectin and
Botox. Most people don't know that umbilical cord blood and its stem cells have been used in medicine for 60 years. There's 80 different diseases that it's the primary treatment. And while they were treating these other diseases, they started seeing that autoimmune diseases got better, other things got better, and they knew that it had a broad impact on the immune system. Right now, this is the only thing they've ever discovered that grows new brain cells in an adult. It'll be the biggest advancement in medicine since antibiotics, and that will be able to control a lot of these chronic diseases.
Eric had a thriving plastic surgery practice for
decades.
I just saw what it did for our son. And I remember that I think we need to help other people. We're laying in bed one night and we always talk before you fall asleep. And I just said, when you meet your maker, I know you're really good at plastic surgery, but how can you not do this for other people? And he was like, because that's not my job right now. He said, you can make it your job and you can help other people. How much more money do you need at the end of your life? This is something that is going to impact families like we had and change their lives. I got him to think about it. And then to just do Fridays. I said, let's just try Fridays. And then it expanded. And I said, this is your calling. This is your purpose. At the end of your life, you're going to be changing, not that you weren't changing other lives.
But I think if you just look at it big picture, as a plastic surgeon on every street corner now, that's not going to prevent anybody from receiving the care they need, whether it's traumatic, post-cancer, or cosmetic. But there's not many people like me who are willing to take on the medical establishment. There are clearly medical things that you can do to a child with autism that will start to move him toward outside of therapy. The gut's inflamed, that's been proven. The brain's inflamed, that's been proven. And as you start to take this inflammation away, it makes everything more normal. It makes the brain more plastic. You start to make more connections. You start to grow these something called white matter tracts that connect different areas of your brain. It lengthens telomeres. It does some very significant things. For people in congestive heart failure, it's been shown to increase their cardiac output. So it's pretty impressive stuff. I want to be the guy that people can go for some type of answer because most pediatricians have no idea.
What keeps you both motivated and inspired every day?
I think it's an exciting time for our lives. RFK Jr. is right. We have the sickest children in the world. The question is, why has autism gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 20? I mean, that's something that can't be explained easily.
And we've seen in our practice changes in families, changes in kids that have spoken, speak, kids that haven't been potty trained and they're 9. They go home and they're potty trained. I was a dietitian by trade, so his gut was healthy. That's the only thing I knew. So right away when I saw his stools were not good, I said, I got to clean up his gut. So I went all organic. I think his reaction to the stem cells was much more immediate than some of the kids now that have inflamed guts. But I think that's what motivates you too when someone calls and says, when can I come in for my stem cells again? My son is playing with his brothers. He has eye contact.
We've seen some amazing things. Kids go from special needs schools to regular schools where there was a behavioral program implemented in the school to where there's never a behavioral problem. This doesn't take the place of therapists, but it'll make them respond to therapy so much better. The whole key to therapy is to break the connections of poor behavior and reinforce connections in the brains of better behavior. And to have the brain acting normally and to be able to make new connections, that's what you want. In fact, the therapists are usually the first ones to pick up that something has happened differently. I just think that that's kind of our life. Certainly not perfect.
But it is an exciting time.
It's safe. It's new. It is used off-label, but the FDA regulates drug companies. It doesn't regulate healthcare. Healthcare takes place between me and my patients. And if we agree that it's safe, it's potentially viable, it's on the U.S. formulary already, then we can use it. 20% of all the drugs used in the United States are used off-label.
And the crazy part about the umbilical cord, we've been throwing it away for, 30 years, 40 years. We just take that umbilical cord and we put it in medical waste. It's only been in the last few years that we've asked pregnant moms when they give birth, do you want to store your umbilical cord in the blood and whatnot? But it's expensive too. It's just crazy to me that we've been throwing it away for this wonderful packet of cells.
And probably 99% still gets thrown away. So I believe that'll be one thing that hopefully it's asked of every pregnant mother. If you don't want to save it for yourself, will you donate?
What does it cost for one treatment or one infusion?
It varies. Right now, the only guidelines we have is by weight. The Duke study, which was published in 2019, said that if you're 1 million cells per kilogram or less, there wasn't much benefit. 1 to 2 million cells per kilogram, there was a benefit, but more is better. And so essentially it depends how much the child weighs. If they're 15 years old and weigh 150 pounds, you need more cells than if they're 4 years old and weigh 40 pounds. And so the treatments can vary between probably $8,500 to $15,000, which I know is very expensive, but I'm trying to keep the cost down as much as I can. I tried to put all the information I know on my website, northfloridastemcells.com. When we were going into this, it was hard to get information. So I tried to explain the rationale for this type of therapy, why it's safe.
And in the book, you don't even have to read the whole book. I know they're busy. There's 3 chapters in Educating Marston on stem cells. And you could just read those 3 chapters and get a layman's term of what it is. That helps educate you on what's available and what's out there.
Thank you both so much for joining me on this podcast. Appreciate you taking the time to share your journey. I am grateful to call you family. This has been wonderful. We are blessed to have such an amazing couple like you out there as advocates for stem cell therapy and also for autism.
Love you.
Thanks for listening to Bon Vivant Chic, Life Well Lived. I hope you'll tune in for more meaningful stories on the human experience and share with family and friends. All the episodes are available on Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple, and on my website, bonvivantchic.com. Till next time, remember, every day is a gift. Live it. Kindness matters.